Hello and welcome to the Rejuvenate podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy Hawks. And today we have a special surprise for you guys. We have the wonderful Jack Schroder. He is a health coach and he's overcome his own health challenges by really diving deep and becoming his own advocate and working with others to help them do the same. So without further ado, welcome, Jack. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks, Chrissy. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Currently in Thailand. Sun's out, so zero complaints where I am. But yeah, again,
Beautiful.
pleasure to be here. Very excited to have this chat.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I know Elwin had brought you to my attention before about all of your optimization for yourself and others that you're doing. So I just wanted to dive into your story just a little bit. I know that you've got your website out there so people can look into it more, and also you've joined other podcasts as well. But I wanted to ask, because the thing that picked up for me was when you were saying that at one point you were living this unhealthy life, quote unquote, and then you turned things around. Some individuals do have the turning point, and I wanted to ask, what was it for you specifically that maybe it was an instance, something that occurred that you decided, right, no more, I'm going to make the shift?
I think personally for me, it was like a lot of stuff synergized together at once. So I come from a big city, kind of similar to London, I suppose, but it's in Australia. It's called Melbourne. So big nightlife, very drug and alcohol influence. So I was very much in that culture, in that space. And then during that time, I mean, I wasn't that healthy. I was always like conscious exercise wise and stuff, but was just following like the food pyramid. All that sort of stuff, and wasn't aware of like the depths that I know now regarding like circadian biology, light, sleep, how like stress and trauma affects the body, and things of that nature, basically. And around COVID time, actually, which was like the straw that broke the camel's back there, I had some pretty decent health issues, especially with like my testosterone being really low. Like, I've shared it a few times. It's like it was basically equivalent to probably like a 70 or 80-year-old man. So on top of just like the stress related stuff, and COVID and, drug and alcohol and everything else I just mentioned, it just all synergized together. And eventually I got to this stage where I'm like, I need to make a change. I can't stop. I can't feel like this anymore. Like, so yeah, I mean, went through the whole Western medicine side of things, and they didn't move the needle at all, to be honest, if not made it worse, and just recommended me medication like SSRIs and like I was on like estrogen blocking medication, which is what females take when they're on breast cancer. Um, so I mean, and that increased my testosterone per se, but it didn't rectify the problem because again, estrogen's obviously also involved in a man. But yeah, it was just a bunch of other issues I didn't take into account. And yeah, just after some personal research and just digging a bit deeper into like the more decentralized alternative health space, I managed to find some things that really stimulated me in terms of like understanding like nature and how nature can heal you and circadian biology and optimizing your sleep, and then just really dialing into your mindset and like addressing stress and trauma and everything down the line of that. I just really managed to resolve my issues. So yeah, and then it just inspired me to help others basically, because I'm like, wow, like so many people would be stuck in the same position that I was. So yeah, it's very much become health optimization coaching in terms of that, helping people like that. But then also get stepping into the educational side of things as well, because I just love learning. I love learning everything. So it's been another thing that I've started to be working on as well down the line for people who just want to level up and become their own doctors, basically.
Beautiful. I mean, yeah, you really speak to that culture because, like, here in the UK and in many different places, it really is a culture of, pub culture. We go to the pub, we have a few drinks, we do that, where the socialization and alcohol are intertwined. So, it can be very difficult for people to step out of that. If you do have somebody that comes to you that's very much entwined in that culture, what is your advice to them to help them make that shift? Because sometimes people can find that, very difficult because they might feel that they're losing a part of their identity in being able to do that.
Yeah, it's huge. So yeah, I mean, like they have to be ready to like make changes. That's for sure. Like You can't go into this like half. You have to be all in, basically. But yeah, like I'm going to be there to support you all the way if you are invested. And yeah, I mean, it is like an identity change to a degree because your hobbies change, like your friendship groups will shift as well. Um, and it's just like all about finding who you actually are as opposed to who you think you are because you're fueled on substances to a degree, and unhealthy and can't even think straight and things of that nature as well. I mean, I'm just talking from experience, like with myself, because I was very much in that position. So yeah, it's just really empowering the client that they can make the change and they're the only one that have the ability to change as well. It's like I can just give you information, and I can help you out, and I'll support you all the way through, but it's up to you to make that change, and I'm just there to empower you with education and just a few little tools to get you through. But ultimately it comes down to the client wanting to make those changes. So
Yeah,
yeah.
perfect. I mean, that's a massive point. The other part about it is the who we are today doing those things is not the person that we become by change. So we have to become a different person, essentially.
We have to
Right.
understand that, yeah, like the modern world is just out to get you at every single corner. Because again, if you're low dopamine if you're just low dopamine, that's one of the big ones that does get robbed. If you are low dopamine, say, and you are getting your fix from substances and alcohol or whatever it may be, but you're also getting attacked from like pharmaceuticals or technology or processed food, because they all synergize together and they all cater to that low dopamine state. So it's just like understanding the mechanisms behind that and just taking a step out and understanding like, look, there is like no doubt discomfort in like the healing phase, but what you get at the end of that is just truly incredible. Like the ability to actually like think clear and have a purpose. It's just you cannot put a price on that, honestly. It just everything in life just gets better.
Beautifully said. I mean, and it must be hard, like when somebody's over here, to be like, okay, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and life does get better, but they've got to go through it essentially. Yeah. Okay. You
Absolutely.
you did mention decentralized. So I know I've seen you talk a little bit about that a little. Can you explain to our listeners, if they haven't heard that before, what you mean by that concept?
Yeah, so decentralized. So if we think of like what the centralized system is, firstly, it's like you are um you go to the dentist, you go to the doctor, you go to your GP for your advice, you go to a dietitian, and they're all basically educated from higher up, whoever's funding that. So at the end of the day, they're all getting fed to to be honest, like mostly bullshit or half truths. Um, and it's just like understanding, empowering yourself, but to have the ability to think outside the box and have the tools in your toolkit to use them for when they serve a purpose. So, for example, like X-rays and broken bones and surgery, things of that nature, where they are really, really good at what they do. But then understanding that you are your own doctor and you can empower yourself to heal and thrive, and like you don't probably need to go to the dentist as much as you think. And whatever it may be, it's just empowering you from that perspective, and just understanding the way to attack that is through a bit of a decentralized lens. So again, just decentralizing yourself, like kind of like my experience where I went through the centralized system and they didn't do much at all for me personally. And then it was like until I decided to do stuff that was slightly decentralized in terms of, and it sounds silly because decentralized is like literally connecting back to nature, but that's exactly like the things that you have to do in order to heal. And they're just so easy and they're free as well. I think that's another big thing. It's just like when you become in this decentralized, um, your health is like somewhat decentralized, then everything like becomes cheaper as well. You're not spending money on AirPods or sunglasses or polyester clothing from Lululemon or whatever it may be. It's just like you basically just have this power to be able to take health into your own hands and make the right decisions and know what's absolutely best for you and not only yourself but your loved ones, your family, and whatever else it may be. Um,
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I mean, that's one of the things we like to do here on this podcast is to empower people to make their decisions and not just hand that over to any individual to tell them what's right for them to do. So I really do like, you're advocating for people to take their health back in their own hands and do it. Because I did see on your website when I was, preparing for this, you put the quote up there about the endocrinologist, if you think you need one. And the quote was your testosterone levels in the centralized system, and you were getting fed certain health advice from the professionals. But then when you really started looking at your health, from a decentralized point of view, everything just kind of figured it out for itself. And the other part that I loved at the end was, by the way, my endocrinologist was bald and fat. And it's always that thing too of when we just recently did an episode on finding the right practitioner for you. And so one of the things was, when you looking at somebody in that way and they're giving you certain health advice, of trying to figure out, actually, is this the right person to give it to me? So can you delve a little bit deeper into that for me?
Yeah, it's about prioritizing who packs your parachute, basically. And it's just like, just because this person's got a qualification through the centralized system doesn't necessarily they know the full story, basically. Because again, as we said before, they're getting educated from higher up to push medication, basically. That's exactly what happened to me. And yeah, like, I mean, in terms of like, and it's funny you say that in terms of like him being like bald and fat, but it's like, and I knew that when I first saw him. I'm like, why? Like at the back of my head, before like I kind of was a bit more open minded, I was like, oh, why am I taking advice from this person? He probably has low testosterone anyway, you know. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I even asked him initially. I was like, oh, so this is when my testosterone was really low at the start. I said, oh, do you think like diet, sleep, exercise, um, plays a big role in terms of like my testosterone being low? And I think I might have mentioned stress as well. And he goes, nah, not really. This is just kind of what happens. And then that's literally what was the turning point. So I'm like so grateful that he actually said that, because I was like, this sounds like bullshit. Like, you know what I mean? So that's where I really started to question stuff, and really decided to take matters into my own hands. And that's, as I said, that's the way I healed, basically, was from doing it from that approach. And again, another thing that I forgot to mention as well is the fact that I got diagnosed with like a sleep apnea too. And I had like a I didn't have a CPAP machine, but I had like a mouth guard that I would wear to prevent myself from like choking on my tongue, because I'd wake up like 10 to 15 times
How did you
an
get
hour.
diagnosed, by the way?
So I did a couple of sleep studies. Yeah. And then yeah, they told me that I'd have to replace this $3,000 mouth guard every 10 years. And and that's expensive, I suppose. And it just adds on. But yeah, like within the last year, I was able to remove that as well. And it's just like there's so many layers in terms of how to optimize your health beyond just like a little tool, which might move the needle a little bit. Um, so again, and like even with sleep apnea in general, it's like you're breathing through your mouth, or like preventing yourself from breathing for a reason. You know, there's a reason you're doing that, is because your mitochondria in your brain have already got too much oxygen that they can't utilize. So on a subconscious level, there's every chance that's a potential mechanism behind that it's somewhat protective. I feel like your body's always doing something protective, and that applies for like fat accumulation as well, or like skin issues in general. Is like you're protecting yourself potentially from blue light and non-native AMF, especially like because there's fat surrounding your organs. It's like, why are we all of a sudden getting visceral fat, but no other animal is? Because we're the ones surrounded by like all this toxicity, basically. And again, it's like it it's it can be mitigated though, and it's just like, again, tying it back to that decentralized aspect I said before. It's just all about like copying nature as much as you can in the modern world. And that's literally how easy it is. If you copy nature as much as you can and mitigate the effects of the modern world, you are going to do very well.
Oh, perfect. I'm glad you brought that up. And I mean, like I said, I've got quite a few questions. We might be jumping around a bit, but since you've got that lead in, and then what would you say is, yeah, tell us about that. How do we copy nature in this modern world that we live? What do we need to start doing?
So I mean, for me, I guess it's a prime example. Like, I'm in a city right now, as you can see behind me, but I'm outside like all day. Or if I'm not outside, the window's open like when I'm inside. And that in itself is just like you're simulating nature, as opposed to being inside where you're not getting the full spectrum of light. Again, I'm actually using like an Ethernet cable right now. so I'm not using Wi-Fi. This is actually relatively new that I've started to do this, but it's actually quite easier. It's a lot easier than I actually thought. And it's just, again, so
You
it's
must
like,
have a long cable, just
yeah,
to
it's like,
say.
yeah, it's like 10 meters. Yeah, it's not too bad though. From Amazon, $10 or something. It was a good little investment. Um, but yeah, I mean, like and again, there's no rules to this. It's just like doing the best you can as well and having that mindset. So, like a prime example is like if you're waking up and the first thing you're doing is checking your phone, it's like instead of doing that, how about you go outside just for like a minute? And then maybe you can check your phone with a screen filter on, because again, you're simulating nature in terms of the light component of that. But then it goes like even deeper. There's plenty of layers, like the stress mindset stuff is like, so like really getting your mindset dialed in, because we in the modern world, as we all know, it's just like we have so many stresses and potential trauma that just goes unaddressed like our whole lives, and that can just like synergize as well basically and add more fuel to the fire. And then like nutrition as well. Like, I mean, it depends on where you want to go. I can talk about any of them, but like nutrition's another big one. It's like, you're in the UK, as you said, but you can get mangoes like all year round, and that's tied to something called deuterium and just the water, like the forms of hydrogen. And that's literally like binary code in terms of what your mitochondria detect. And that's going to have an influence in terms of redox reactions and inflammation. So it's just like all these layers. It's just like you've just got to eat as local as possible, optimize the mind, really, really dial in that light environment. And again, like doing the stuff after sunset as well, like blocking artificial light and stuff, using candles or red light. It's just like those things just move the needle so much. It's not even funny. And like literally everything I'm telling you is free, or back close to it. As I said, Ethernet cable, like that. $10, but like just like little things maybe will cost you a bit of money. But again, putting your feet on the ground at sunrise, like in grass at a park, is free of charge, and it will do much more than any supplement will ever do.
Interesting. So let's talk about that grounding. What is actually happening within the body when you are putting your feet? And I'm assuming, it should be bare feet on the ground, not with socks or anything like that.
Yeah, so you just got to think of like a wire. Right? If you think of like okay, here we go. My Ethernet cable. We're
Yeah.
going back to this again. So in this cable, there is like copper running through it, okay? And that's conductive. And on the outside, there's insulation. So you can think of your body is the copper. It's like it's conductive, basically. It's full of semiconductors. And then the insulation is like your shoes, like your rubber shoes. And it's just from that perspective, it's not ancestrally consistent to be wearing rubber soled shoes and not being grounded. And like, look, some people probably are going their whole life without even putting their feet on the earth. Like that's just like wild. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just like connecting back to nature. The earth in itself is rich in electrons. It's got a net negative charge, and we're constantly using up electrons. So for us to get this constant injection of electrons per se is huge. It's also been shown in studies to like synchronize our circadian rhythm. Like even if you have no light or no other stimulus present, like temperature or feeding, and you're just in the dark and you're grounded, your body will still detect a circadian rhythm. And that's tied to how like the Earth's magnetic field is synchronized when we put our feet on the ground. It almost like acts like a Faraday cage to like non-native EMFs to a degree. Um, so yeah, it just does some amazing stuff. And then in terms of like the electron stuff, like us being outside in the sun, grounded, in terms of like our blood flow, because in the sun, especially when the UV kicks in, we start to increase sulfation and nitric oxide, and that helps with blood flow and creates like a net negative charge around our veins and blood vessels and arteries. And then when we ground, we add more electrons to that system, and that's also around like the red blood cells is negative charge as well. So the blood flow, because it's two negative charges against each other, the red blood cells are fully negative and the surfaces of these blood vessels, our blood flow is super efficient and our blood connects everything, right? It sends oxygen to all our tissues. So it's just, I mean, there's plenty of layers in terms of this grounding stuff. But again, it's just like if you're able to do it like for 5 minutes in the morning and then like 5-10 minutes a few times throughout the day, that is just huge, like insanely good, especially in the modern world where we are depleted of electrons.
Genetic Insights provides cutting-edge, affordable DNA testing, giving you access to over 500 health reports that can help you in 3 key ways. They may be able to resolve your existing health challenges even when nothing else has worked. Using simple lifestyle changes, their reports can help you reduce your risk of developing future health challenges that you may be genetically predisposed to. And they can help you feel more confident in your health by showing you where you are genetically strong. Unlike most other genetic health testing companies, Genetic Insights tests over 83 million different variations in your genes, guaranteeing 99.7% accuracy across all of their DNA reports. They cover almost every aspect of health, including digestive issues, cardiovascular health, weight loss, hormonal and blood sugar balance, as well as nutrient needs, allergies and intolerances, and so much more. Using their system is quick and easy, and reading the reports is simple. If you've done an Ancestry DNA test, you can simply download your raw DNA data, upload it to the Genetic Insights platform, and within a few hours you will have access to genetic reports which give you a risk score for each specific issue and scientifically validated recommendations based on your individual genetic profile. Everything in your reports are based on scientific studies, and there are citation links throughout every report. If you are serious about optimizing your health and wellness and feeling great, then getting access to your Genetic Insights reports may be the most important health investment you will ever make. In the reports, not only will you gain insights into how to overcome existing health challenges and avoid future issues, you'll also discover which types of dietary, lifestyle, and even supplement protocols are best for your unique genetics. To get your unique genetic health reports, go to geneticinsights.co and use code Rejuvenate to get 20% off today. That's geneticinsights.co using coupon code Rejuvenate to get 20% off today. In the past, I have seen grounding devices that, you plug into your wall, but that's not really having the same effect, or is it? If there are certain people that cannot get to certain, places outside.
So I will say, like, even concrete is grounded. So that's another little hack. It's like you don't need grass per se, although wet grass or like obviously like salt water on sand is going to be ideal, but concrete is great as well. The only concern I have about grounding mats is because you're plugging directly, and this comes from like my old job. My old job, I used to be like an electrical linesman. So I used to work on like power lines and stuff. So we used to like test houses and volts and currents through the house and on the lines and stuff. And when you're plugging in a grounding mat into the actual socket, the earth, depending on where you are, but the earth is actually connected to the neutral. So you've got the earth, neutral, and active. And there's always backfeed on the earth from the neutral there. And I've tested it like in Australia when we've done it. So it's just something just to definitely be mindful about. And also the fact that there's a thing called dirty electricity as well, which is like the frequency of like the AC power grid, especially when there's loose connections and stuff throughout, like depending on like if it's an old house or whatnot. That can increase the pulses of this AC frequency. And again, as we said before, with like the Schumann resonance, the magnetic field, which is what you ground to, which is generally like 8 hertz, 10 hertz, 20 hertz, and 30 hertz, and they like synchronize similar to brainwaves. When you have an injection of the AC power grid in the frequencies of 50 to 60 hertz, and that's just at like the low end. But then when you got dirty electricity, that can amplify to like almost double and higher. So that's just something to be mindful of if you are doing that. And look, I think it's just like depends on the N equals 1. If you're going to do it and like you're in like a somewhat rural area, like not in like a real populated city, you could use an earth stake and just like chuck it straight into the ground directly. And then at least then you're not into the AC power grid. But just another issue is the fact that if you are like, it can almost act as like an antenna as well per se.
Right.
Obviously you need to use like a trimeter to like double check, but I've heard of people who have used that like, and it's like, and they may not be in like a populated city, but if there's like a tower nearby or just like transmission lines or whatever, there could be an injection per se. Can't think of the actual word, but we have a word when I used to do my old job. But yeah, that literally that would happen to me. Like I would be working on like a power line, and the power would be switched off, but there'd be a transmission tower in proximity, and sometimes you'd get a little zap from it. um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Just like like those ones on the escalator where you get that little zap. But again,
Yeah.
it's just like even those like small, much more minute than that can have effects on our biology. We run on a very low voltage, but we're very efficient.
Right. So we are electric in essence.
Absolutely. Like collagen and water, like I mean, collagen is like a third of the proteins in our body, and it literally connects us from head to toe, and that's always hydrated with water, and water's like 99 molecules out of 100 are water in our body, and around 60 to 70% of us are water. And that those in themselves are semiconductors, but also there's various others like DHA, melanin, um, many more that we could definitely get into. But yeah, we are like at the end of the day, we run on like this DC electric current. We don't run on AC. We don't have a neutral wire. We just run on direct current. So that's why grounding is key to feed our semiconductors, basically. And then the sun in itself literally increases collagen synthesis. It increases melanin. It enhances our cell membranes. It increases mitochondrial function. And it literally like charge separates water, so it like excludes protons from this zone, as we said before, on those surfaces of the blood vessels. So you literally have this negative charge running all the way along and a positive charge on the other side. And that literally acts like a battery. So that's every other reason, even more reason to be grounded.
Right. I mean, a lot of this, this is new to me, so this is fantastic. I'm loving this education, and at the end, I'm definitely going to ask you where I can go read up and find more about this, so I can dive deeper into it. You mentioned the electromagnetism, Schumann resonance, and I know as well. And we did a nice little chat there on grounding. You also mentioned POMC on Twitter. I saw, and Ellen brought that up to me, and I don't know much about that. Can you talk to us about what that is and why we need to pay attention and how important it is for us?
Yeah, of course. So POMC, you don't have to remember the actual name, but it's pro-opiomelanocortin, and it's literally like this massive protein, and it's found in various tissues of our body, and it gets sliced and diced depending on the light, and to a degree, like various signals like cold, like hits it. So, for example, when you wake up in the morning, there's no UV light, but there is like blue light and a little bit of, or there is infrared light, but there's also blue light, but there's no UV.
I was going to say,
So
yeah, if
that,
you could talk us through what that, yeah, so that arc of what the light is throughout the day, just so we have that understanding too.
yeah, of course. So then, yeah, this is good. So then I can run you through the whole day.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so that POMC gets cleaved in the morning because of the blue light only to ACTH, and that ACTH is influences cortisol downstream. So that's good in the morning. We want that alertness naturally in the morning. And now you can obviously see just from that alone why it's problematic that we have these sharp blue artificial light peaks after sunset that we're constantly bathed in for hours on end every single night. Um, and anyway, so then once the UVA kicks in, that's where the POMC will, there's still like blue light obviously in the sun, but then the cleavage will also alter into the UVA region, which is melanocyte stimulating hormone starts to kick in. And that influences like melanin production, but it also influences like our appetite as well and libido. And it's also plays a role in the immune system. Um, and now you can think of that as like, so it makes sense to a degree because the if we suppress our appetite when the sun's out and we're getting energy from the sun, we don't really need to eat that much. And that's exactly like what happens to me. If I'm out in the sun all day, I generally would just have breakfast and then I'll skip lunch and have an early dinner. And that's just because like it's just I'm constantly getting cleaved into this alpha MSH. And that happens in UVB light as well. So when that's usually around midday where the sun's strong. Did you want me to go through like the actual hormone releases and stuff as well?
I think that would be helpful because it's really also about helping everybody understand how important light is really as a nutrient, because I don't think many of us know. And by being in our modern day living, I don't think a lot of us actually understand the potential devastating impact it does have on our health. Because if you don't see it instantly, like when you burn yourself on a hot pan or something, you have no idea of the long-term effects. And then you get, 20, 30 years down the line and you're kind of going like, well, why do I feel like shit?
So yeah, okay, we'll go back to the UVA then. So we spoke about cortisol, and it's just like that in itself, those colors, like the blue and the infrared, because the sun is dynamic, so it's constantly changing, right, from sunrise to sunset. So that color, those colors, like specifically in the morning, literally program your body. It's like okay, it's morning, so it's like a circadian component to that. Then usually about 2 to 3 hours after the sun rises, that's where UVA kicks in. If you're in the tropics like me, it will kick in within an hour easily. And what goes on there? There's a lot of magic that happens at UVA rise. It's probably like my favorite time. So, as we said, that's where alpha MSH and melanin increase. That's where like sex hormone production starts to increase. So that's why like when you do a blood test from like 8 to 9:30, that's where sex hormones are highest. Um, hence some reasoning behind that. So that's where like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, DHEA are all made. And then this sunlight actually interacts with aromatic amino acids, and they are just like amino acids that love sunlight. They love UV light. And we got tyrosine and phenylalanine, which downstream make melanin, as we said before, but also dopamine, and also noradrenaline and adrenaline. Pretty big deal. Thyroid hormone, that's another big one. We need that. And then tryptophan forms serotonin, and that also forms melatonin like down the line, provided we get darkness at night. So again, that's why there's like cortisol and melatonin working on like a seesaw per se. So when one's high, the other's low. So that's why it's important to double down on your light environment at night. And then we got another one, histidine. And histidine forms histamine downstream, which is actually good in the right amounts, but it can also form something called urocanic acid. And now this is like like nature's sunscreen. This and also melatonin, which gets released, as I just said, it gets released at night, but we also get it made in a different way in our mitochondria during all day when we're in infrared light. And these all big. You guys probably are aware of all of these, and they're a pretty big deal to optimize. So getting like that 10-15 minutes of UVA rise is going to just have this synergistic effect for all of those. Now, when the UVB kicks in, we obviously know UVB is tied to vitamin D, right? That's very important. But then we also make more melanin because the sun's stronger. But then we also make something else from that POMC gene. It gets sliced and diced into alpha MSH, as we said before, but also something called beta endorphin, which I'm sure we've heard about as well. When you do exercise, when you have sex, when you laugh, you get a release of endorphins. And what does that tell you? I'm asking you personally, what does that tell you when you get that release of endorphins during those activities?
It feels good. It's great. It's running through your body. Yeah.
So it's like and we have that release because it's like reinforcing us. Okay, this is good for us, so we should keep doing it, right? It's not only until we short circuit that system with artificial stuff that's when it becomes problematic. So what I'm trying to say is that the sun is something that we get addicted to, right?
Right. Okay. Because then also there's the other aspect of where people potentially are out in the sun too much and then they burn, or there's, skin cancer, things like that. So how can you explain to other individuals that might say, oh yeah, but the sun is bad in that regard? How do you enlighten them?
So we have to understand that the sun doesn't necessarily directly cause cancer. Um, it's more of an effect of like someone's redox, in my opinion, and like inflammation. So I would say that sunburn is caused by inflammation. Your body is not able to handle the light that is hitting it. And we got to remember, like UV light is strong, and we still have to respect it. Um, but again, it's like if you build up those semiconductors, you build up your body like with this resilience to be able to handle that light and actually take advantage of it. Then it's not bad. Um, you got to think like even like recently there was a live streamer who some video gamer guy who had melanoma, and look, if you saw him, he's pale, he's probably never seen the sun in his whole life, and he got a melanoma on the bottom of his foot. It's like what does that tell you? Like if that doesn't make you scratch your head, I don't know what will. um and it's just like, I mean, like again, it's just copying nature with our light environment as well. It's like, how many people are actually respecting the light cycles and getting out at sunrise before they go out in the stronger sunlight? Because again, as we said, that that infrared light in the morning is literally like if you go to the gym and like it's like doing warm-up sets. So it's like if you go straight, like let's just say it's the middle of winter, and you live, okay, let's hypothetically you're in the UK and you go down to the Canary Islands in the middle of winter, and you just decide without any preparation, you just go into direct sun, also being blue light toxic, and highly inflamed. It's like it's not the sun that caused that. It's like you're biohacking yourself by going so far south near the equator, and then also just hitting yourself with this sunlight that you're not ready for. You know what I mean? It's just wild. Like it's literally like doing like 300 kilo bench press. I don't know what it is in the UK. What's that, like stones or pounds or something?
Yeah.
Uh,
They do kilos here too, but no, I'm more like pounds. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I would equate it to, oh, tomorrow I'm just going to go out and run a marathon and I've done no training.
yeah,
That kind of
exactly.
thing.
It's like
Yeah.
you have to prep the skin. I mean, like for me personally, I've been in the tropics for the last almost 2 years. So, some days I'm out here for like 8 hours, and like you'll get a little bit pink, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're burning either. Like that's nitric oxide, like literally the influence of night, because that's something I missed. So that UV light also increases nitric oxide. I might have mentioned it earlier actually. And when we think about what's going on there, it's like our blood vessels are rising to the surface because they want to harvest the light that is available to them. So you'll get this like pink glow, and then the next day it's gone, and you literally aren't sunburnt. So I think there's a bit of nuance in terms of that as well. But again, it's just like the whole cancer story. It's like a mitochondrial issue at the end of the day, just because of that influence. If you look into Warburg metabolism, that is literally the metabolism of how cancer cells, tumor cells, actually fundamentally work, and their mitochondria are just not working. Like they refuse to actually work, so they're relying on other ways for energy. And again, mitochondrial issue. The best way to literally charge up your mitochondria is darkness at night and infrared light, like during the day. But again,
And
as I said,
that I was going to say that infrared light during the day, is that like right at the beginning of the day or is that throughout the day?
all
All
day you get
day.
infrared light, and the beautiful thing about it is you don't have to be in direct sunlight to get it. Another beautiful thing, and this is why nature is just amazing, is if you look at so I'm literally looking down right here, and there's like a bunch of like trees and shit, and they're all green. And the reason they're green is because they reflect certain colors, and what they actually reflect as well. So they absorb green and parts of the yellow and a little bit of the blue, ish, and then they'll reflect red and infrared. And that, like literally just being near that is just like an infrared light therapy device within itself. And again, if your feet are on the ground, you're grounded as well. So it's just like really just going back to nature. But as I said, it's like for me, like being out in the sun for 8 hours in tropical sunlight, I don't want people to do that unless they're like actually built up their solar callus, because it can be dangerous. It's like you have to take it slow. I took it extremely slow. But again, it's just like that first 2 to 3 hours on each side of the day is safe, extremely safe and extremely beneficial.
Okay. You just thank you for going over that because that's really quite helpful. Understanding the cycles of the sun. And I see, yeah, it's a little bit easier when you are out in the tropics, but take a climate here like the UK or anywhere up in that very far northern where they're really not getting the light. And when we do go outside, because it is cold, we have to be covered up in clothing. Are we still able to absorb what we need to absorb from the sun?
This is a great question because it makes me know that you're thinking about these things, which is great. Um, And this is the beauty of being at a higher latitude, but something that we also just don't take advantage of, or want to take advantage of is probably better words, is the cold. So again, like you still get infrared light throughout um, the whole of winter, even though the light cycles are shorter. Generally, you'll find that people may use fire or saunas and stuff as well, especially in like those Nordic countries, which is just like extremely beneficial. But the cold is really good as well. So the cold drives up redox reactions as well in our body, like that, especially cold water immersion, but also just like cold air as well. And that literally increases our so when we have like oxidative stress in the right amounts, it's very beneficial. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And when we're in the cold, that upregulates somewhat. And oxidative stress and free radicals are actually tied to something called biophotons. And what biophotons are is it's literally little bits of light that our cells emit as signals. And in the cold, we upregulate these biophotons, and they're in the UVA, UVB, and UVC light, so that we can make light when we're in the cold stronger than the sun. And that has huge influences in our body. Um, and it can literally interact with POMC, as we said before, and things of that nature as well. So you can think of like Eskimos, for example. You see them, and they're at like very high latitudes, like 60 plus, like right above Canada, and some of them are very tanned, like especially before like they became somewhat colonized, but like they're very dark skin, and they sometimes get no sun whatsoever. So they're taking advantage of that. There's also an effect when you're outside, especially if it snows. Does it snow where you are?
It depends. Sometimes more up north. I'm kind of down, south, southwest. So yeah, barely, but every now and
Ah,
again.
probably a smart move in the UK, to be honest. But yeah, I think yeah, like when there's snow or water in that matter, it's just like there's something called the albedo effect. And if you think of like the classic like the 80s women who like had like the aluminium sort of reflecting thing whilst they were tanning, if you know what I'm
Yes,
talking
just
about.
oh, I do. I remember.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can sort of think of it like that. So it like enhances the light absorption basically. And also another mechanism is the fact that when we get cold, what happens to our skin?
Yeah, my hair starts to stand on end. That's all I can tell you.
And think about what goosebumps are fundamentally doing. They're like raising the surface area of your skin to take in more light. Pretty incredible. So it's just about getting outside just like that a little bit. And like look, it's just like baby steps. You don't want to like be a Wim Hof and just like jump into an ice bath for 20 minutes and just like have like a sympathetic overdrive and destroy like your nervous system. But it's just like slow steps of incorporating that. And you'll find that in the winter, cold to a degree, like literally through like biochemical mechanisms, acts as a signal, like the temperature of cold acts as a signal to replace the lack of light for our circadian rhythm.
Interesting. Okay, interesting.
And if you tie it in with what I said before, with the biophotons and the UV light, which can make dopamine and melanin and things of that nature as well, and serotonin, um, and like you probably heard that like cold increases like noradrenaline and dopamine by like 200% or whatever it is. Um, it's like, well, if we just like got a little bit more cold and got outside, also the fact we got the infrared light as well, the seasonal affective disorder probably wouldn't exist, or not nowhere near as much as it should. Because yeah, again, like people who are in that state who have seasonal affective disorder because they're staying inside all day and they're obviously burnt out from like adrenal fatigue from just too much blue light as well, and then they seek substances or artificial dopamine or whatever, they just dig themselves a bigger hole. So it's just like a matter of getting out of that hole and just getting the fuck outside basically.
In an ideal world, you'd meet all of your nutritional needs in the form of vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, and more from the foods you eat. However, unless you prepare all of your food at home from scratch using the highest quality ingredients possible, the reality is that most of us need some nutritional support. Most of us need to take supplements if we want to look, feel, and perform at our best on a consistent daily basis. And this is especially true if you have genes that give you an elevated need of certain nutrients. And this is where Feel Younger can help. What I love about Feel Younger is that they offer a huge range of quality supplements and healthcare products formulated and endorsed by Owen Robinson, including must-haves like magnesium glycinate and vitamins B12, D3, and K2. And they do it at affordable prices with free shipping for orders over $50 without ever compromising on quality, purity, or potency. To learn more about how Feel Younger supplements can give your health a boost while supporting this podcast, please visit feelyounger.net and use promo code Rejuvenate to get 20% off your first order. That's promo code Rejuvenate for 20% off your first order at feelyounger.net. A good remedy is, dress up nice, go for a walk, and if you see your breath, even better, and get outside. And that should, even if the sun isn't shining, begin to alleviate that seasonal affective disorder.
100%. And even on those cloudy days, because I know that the UK gets a lot of those, but like And look, you're not gonna get like a strong UV, but you're gonna get a lot of infrared light, and that's just like so benefit. That's the greatest part about sunlight anyway. And because it's just so consistent throughout the whole the whole year, wherever you are on the planet, it's just such a huge needle mover because again, it influences water, it influences our mitochondrial function, influences collagen. And if we think about it from that quantum perspective, it's just like this synergism of like these semiconductors, and it's just going to influence our whole body. It's like literally like making our battery work well, and that's very important.
And that's that infrared light.
Yeah, infrared light, and of course, like obviously other parts like the UV light is going to influence melanin, but again, we got to think about that at the higher latitudes as well. You got more access to seafood that is fattier per se, so you get more DHA, and DHA in itself is a semiconductor, and it plays a big role in terms of like acting as like an antenna for light basically, and influences dopamine as well. So it's like if you're eating like fatty fish and seafood at these higher latitudes, it's like getting more bang for your buck for your biology basically, and that can almost replace like the lack of melanin to a degree. Because again, where I am, like there's shrimp and squid and snapper and a few other things that which are they have a little bit of DHA, but nowhere near as much as like say salmon, trout, or cod or tuna.
Right, right, right. Okay. Brilliant. Love it. Thank you, because you've just enlightened me on a few things, which I absolutely love. I want to go back to where you're talking about levels of dopamine and a little bit testosterone and that, but a lot with dopamine, because as you were saying, where people are reaching for substances to essentially replace this neurotransmitter. Can you walk us through, like, okay, well, I sort of think what's gotten us there, just kind of modern day living, lots of other stresses and stuff like that. What I'm hearing from you is getting back to nature, though, then that will just begin to increase our levels of dopamine in its own natural way, organically. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Again, as you said, with the sunlight and just like improving redox in general is going to be like great.
Can you talk a little bit about Redox just for any of our listeners that don't quite understand that?
So redox is like it literally stands for reduction oxidation, and you can think of that as literally like electrons versus protons. Like how oxidized are you? Like how little electrons do you have versus how reduced are you? Like how many electrons do you have that can be utilized per se? Um, and that's what it basically means. So it's like literally like energy. You can also think of it as like energy to exhaust to a degree. So it's just like really taking advantage of having high redox is like a good thing. It's just like high redox is like inversely correlated to like low inflammation basically. Um, and yeah, like so as I said, like everything regarding just like your biology working better will help increase dopamine and just neurochemistry in general and hormones. Um, but we also have to remember, which is also pretty cool, is that UV light drives melanin production. And as I said before, with that melanin, which is derived from tyrosine, which is the same thing that dopamine is derived from, melanin can almost act as like a reservoir of storage of L-DOPA, and L-DOPA is something that is the precursor to dopamine. So it goes tyrosine, L-DOPA, then it goes melanin or dopamine. And we can utilize that to our advantage when sunlight is missing as well. So that's another mechanism behind that in terms of just like being outside. But if I add another layer to it, I can also talk about like the mind and like social isolation, which is another big thing that is just huge because again, like it's like if we're copying nature, we should have a tribe, and we should have a tribe that we resonate with, and that we should like, yeah, just be really close with like a small group of people. It doesn't have to be like 50 people, but just like have 3, 4, 5 people you can really count on that you like truly love. Because if you are socially isolated, that increases something called dynorphin, which is
I've never heard of that before.
so you got endorphins and then you got dynorphin. And sometimes in small amounts, it's good. So if you think of like being in a sauna or an ice bath, you'll get like, that sort of pain that you get. It's like that discomfort. You get like a release of dynorphin in that regard. And then when you get out of it, and this is another thing, like when you're in labor as well, you'll get like a high amount of dynorphin. But obviously, like at the end of that is just like a huge reward because your opioid receptors, the ones that uh, are activated by endorphin, are just highly sensitive afterwards. But unfortunately, in social isolation, there's a bit more nuance to that, and it doesn't work the same basically, just because of other factors as well. And what that basically does is dynorphin will lower dopamine. It will tank your dopamine, and that's where obviously again, if you're low dopamine, you're going to chase it from other areas, and that in itself, I mean, like when you are like hanging out with people that you really love and you're laughing and really having good deep conversations, you're going to get dopamine release as well, and you're probably going to get it like because when you are talking to someone and it's like somewhat spontaneous about like what you talk about, but you may talk about something and you randomly laugh or randomly like just like come up with a great idea with each other, like that dopamine release is significantly higher because it's unexpected as well. So again, just tying in that is just huge. And then beyond that, like social isolation, like trauma in itself tanks dopamine, and it tanks everything related to it as well. And then it obviously increases cortisol and adrenaline, and then it lowers like testosterone. Estrogen becomes dysregulated, histamine goes up, progesterone goes down. So it's just like just biochemical chaos, basically.
That makes absolute sense because I know some of the older people that definitely had to self isolate during that period of time that we all recall. They went downhill dramatically and their anxiety has increased a hundredfold. It's quite shocking what that isolation can actually do.
Oh, yeah, it's wild. I mean, I would say that it happened, yeah, but like to me as well. I still was like hanging around with certain people, but I think it's just like it was hard to see my family per se. Like being in Melbourne, like it was just a shit show. Probably I would say arguably some of the worst in the world dealing with COVID. Um, and yeah, like it's just the me not being able to like selectively see my family and just like all these rules and regulations and stuff and not seeing my friends. It's like that is just taxing on your mind and body in itself, you know, because we're not meant to be like that. We're not meant to live like zoo animals just like stuck in a cage. Again, because that's not copying nature whatsoever.
No, absolutely. Well said. I know we're kind of coming up to time, so just a couple more questions. I wanted to just touch on you became a health coach, and I wanted to ask what was it or what is it as well that you see after seeing all of your clients now, the certain commonalities or certain patterns that you see the most that maybe others listening to this podcast might be able to recognize, oh, I have that, and this is potentially the next step that, what I may need to be able to do to help myself.
So are you asking like the result or like the what health issues?
Well, yeah, like what they're really coming to you with in the beginning, and then also, the steps potentially, and this might be a longer question, to get them through to the other side, what it really takes for an individual to make that progress.
Yeah, so I mean, lately I've been working with people who, beyond like the substance and like lower dopamine related stuff, I've been working with a lot of people recently that have literally like jumped through hoops with like Western medicine, maybe seen like a naturopath or something, functional doctor, and they really just can't figure out what is going on, and they may have like autoimmunity or they may have like more significant issues, um, and it's just it's unfortunate because they just don't understand like the real effects of the modern world, and I think that's just like the biggest deal, and also the fact that it's just a lot of supplements, a lot of herbals, and a lot of just like just like just overload per se, and it's just like let's just come back to the basics of like what like let's just address the fundamentals first, and it's like maybe you won't even need any supplements, and just maybe like a couple of staple ones per se, and that's basically how I roll in terms of just any client. It's just like you hire me, and then like I teach you to unlearn, and then you relearn to literally have the power to take health and like take matters into your own hands basically. There's like a saying, it's like teach a man no, give a man a fish, he'll fish for a day. Teach a man to fish, he'll fish for the rest of his life. And that's literally what I try to do. I don't just give you like a nutrition plan and we'll jump on a few calls. It's like, oh, I'm here to like empower you. So you better be like invested, and it'll be like the best decision of your life. And yeah, I mean, like it's just like honestly, like it seems to be like a lot of men, but I am getting women as well. It's kind of like an 80-20 regarding that. But yeah, I mean, it's just like a wide span of health issues in terms of just, and like the severity as well. It can be like pretty higher up, or it can be something less significant. They just want to like purely optimize and, maybe get some lab work and just like a few supplements and just really just move the needle that way. Um, and again, like with working with people, it's just so different every time because I really make sure like the first call I have with someone, it goes for like 2 to 3 hours. So I'm asking every question possible. And then it's just like, all right, what do we actually need to, what are your goals? What are your concerns? And it's like, all right, let's just like reverse engineer that. And then work from there basically. And again, it's just like unlearning a little bit, relearning, and then just becoming the best version of yourself you possibly can. That's the aim of the game anyway.
Yeah, perfect. So, and yeah, it is them taking that next step because you can't want it more for them than they want it for themselves. So I think that's the original, key point in this health space.
Absolutely. You have to be invested. I think that's it's somewhat of a trap because I mean, I think it's just important to hear that, like, and just understand that as someone who's wanting to heal, someone who's wanting to optimize their health, it's like you are the only person, not me, not a naturopath, not a GP, not a functional doctor. It's like you are the only person that can truly like know what you need to work on deep down, and being honest with yourself, and you have the power to change that for the better, basically.
Yeah. Perfectly said. I mean, because then the only other thing that comes to my mind as well is if somebody's biochemistry is absolutely in the tank, then how do they get out of that cycle of then, dropping back into the substances or other things just to get them through? Does it come down to willpower? What does it come down to if that biochemistry is so just depleted?
Well, I think there's like there is like a few like supplements and stuff you can use like initially to like move the needle. Like, for example, if it is like lower dopamine or anxiety, it's like, okay, maybe some dopamine or GABA support, like in terms of like herbals that activate like various receptors downstream. Um, but again, it's just like empowering your client and just being there like along the way. It's obviously like going to just be so much more helpful than doing it alone. Um, and it's just making just understand like there is like just discomfort initially, like no matter what, whenever you're swapping out bad habits for good ones, there is just, it's inevitable that there's going to be discomfort. And look, they say like 21 days or whatever to change habits, but I would argue that if you have like a good coach, that can be changed within like a week, so it's just it's just like having someone in your
A
like on the
teammate.
sideline.
Yeah,
Yeah,
support.
like, yeah, you support and just like saying you're doing like an excellent job, and just, picking them up when they fall down and stuff, because it is important, like that health, to understand that health as well within itself, like in healing and optimizing your health. It's never like this straight linear line. There's always like, as long as it's on an incline, it's just like there's always going to be ups and downs. And like that's applicable. I'm sure it's applicable to you. It's applicable to myself as well. And it's just like that's a part of being a human being as well. And just setting those expectations. But yeah, I think the support is just a huge component as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things when people go on these journeys that don't understand, like you were saying earlier, about having the connection with others, but also having somebody that can support you through this healing journey, because it can be tough. It can be a tough ride sometimes. I wanted to ask you, when you started to make those changes, were there books, were there certain people that inspired you that you would potentially recommend for anybody that's interested in having the knowledge that you have gained throughout your journey, that you could recommend that people could look at, read, or listen to, or things like that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I first got into it like looking on Instagram, and like I came across people like Paul Saladino, and like someone like if you've heard of like Soulbra as well, who's like big on Twitter and Instagram, and they just like, they may not know everything, but like they're just, they're the right step in the right direction in terms of like what they're about. And I think that it's just like getting your foot in the door basically to just understand like a little bit more. And then it's like they sort of act like a gateway drug to get to people like me with it, where it goes a little bit more in depth and stuff, like, and it's just not just about diet or like exercise or whatever per se. And it goes a bit deeper. But yeah, it's just like finding that sort of stuff. I mean, obviously Instagram is a trap as well because information is just like so overwhelming, like and like your algorithm will just cater to just so much conflicting bullshit in terms of like nutrition and exercise and stuff. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that is tough because there's a lot out there that will say this is good for you, and then something else will say no, this is bad for you. So it's like it's oh God, it's like a minefield out there, especially if you're uncertain or you're not sure.
this is getting like a health coach is great because it caters to your actual context, like your n equals one. But I mean, you know, I think a book that really helped me. There's a few actually. I think like Atomic Habits was really, really good. I thought that was like an amazing read. And The Power of Now was also a really good book in terms of just like mindfulness related stuff. I think that was an amazing book for me. I did. I'm just like trying to think off the top of my head. Like, I mean, like a lot of people did inspire me. Like my mentor is really good, like Live Vitae, Ryan Carter, on Instagram and Twitter, and like he's just been amazing in terms of a mentor and like as a person. But like he just practiced what he preaches as well. There's people like Jack Cruz who, you know, he's really knowledgeable, but it's very hard to like delve into his information as well, because of the complexity of it. But yeah, I mean, podcasts are great as well. But again, it's just like understanding if you are going to like go deeper in terms of stuff, just know that like again, it's like you know what's best for you and what's required. So it's like you got to cater to your if you're doing it alone, you got to cater to your context of what you fundamentally need and what resonates with you the most as well. I think that's very important because no one's the same.
Beautiful advice. It's so true. We're all unique in that regard. Thank you for that. It's just in case anybody's wanting to dive a little bit deeper that, that's a great starting point for them. This has been fantastic. I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together. I've learned a lot. If somebody does want to work with you, if they want to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so thank you for having me as well. It's been awesome. It's been a great hour. To find me, so I mean, I'm on Twitter and Instagram if you want to delve into some good information about more about what I've been talking about, and that's Instagram is Jack Schroder underscore, and Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it is Jack underscore Schroder underscore. JackSchroder.com is where you can find more, learn more about like working with me to optimize your health and get into some deeper coaching and consults. And then also you can find on the website or just on my social links. I have a school community now, and that's catered. It's somewhat educational, but also like catered to health optimization as well. So it's catered to like practitioners and coaches who want to delve deeper into the stuff I've spoken about this conversation, and off like my Instagram and Twitter, like I go a lot deeper in terms of like there's videos and modules and webinars and blogs and things of that nature and Q&As. So yeah, feel free to check that out. That's catered to coaches, practitioners, and also like health driven men who are already pretty like knowledgeable, but just want to like learn more, and they just like love becoming their own doctor basically. So yeah, that's me.
Fantastic, Jack. You are an inspiration, especially for taking where you were and coming to where you are today, and for helping those that you are helping. And again, thank you so much for joining our wonderful, lovely listeners on the Rejuvenate podcast today. And hopefully in the future, we might be able to have you back. So that would be absolutely lovely. But thanks again.
Awesome. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed that, I recommend watching our latest episode, which you can do by clicking above. And make sure to subscribe, like the video, comment, and share with anyone who you think might appreciate it. Thank you.